Alrighty, greetings and hello everyone. Thank you for joining us for this conversation. I am so excited to be in our digital recording studio here in the Office of Digital and Online Learning. For those who don't know, I am Dr. Morris Thomas and I serve as the Assistant Provost for Digital and Online Learning, as well as the Director of the Center for Excellence in Teaching, Learning, and Assessment, which we call CETLA. I also am a faculty member in the School of Business and the School of Education. And I'm excited to be here to have this exciting conversation today about two of our online programs in the School of Business. And I have a very special guest with me today in the person of Dr. Mariko Carson. Welcome, Dr. Carson.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Carson is the program manager for graduate programs in the School of Business, and she'll tell you specifically about the programs that she's currently working most closely with. Those programs were developed between a partnership with Dr. Carson's oversight and the Office of Digital and Online Learning team, and we help to support different programs in their development and their launch. So Dr. Carson, welcome. So great to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you've gotten into this line of work and watched at Howard University.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, thank you very much in the Office of Digital and Online Learning for having me. I'm Dr. Mariko Carson, as Dr. Thomas mentioned, and I am the manager of graduate programs in the School of Business, primarily responsible for the oversight of our Master of Accountancy and Master of Science and Finance programs in the School of Business. I actually have been in the higher education space for quite some time. I started back in 2007, I believe. When I was stationed overseas in Japan and was a traveling advisor for the University of Maryland Global Campus.
Oh, wow.
And basically fell in love with the higher education sector and the rest is history. So what I will say is that I came to Howard University in 2021, so kind of in the midst of the pandemic, when there were discussions around reimagining the Master of Science and Finance and Master of Accountancy programs in the virtual space. As many of us know, we were in the midst of COVID, so everything was virtual at that time. And so it only made sense that we would provide an opportunity for students to be able to become part of the Bison community by providing these programs online. So.
Okay, great. So that's very interesting. So I was also a pandemic hire.
Okay.
So that is a great thing. I actually probably am a unique person who really enjoyed the pandemic in many ways, but I enjoyed,
I can understand that, yes.
but enjoyed what the pandemic did for our work as far as being practitioners and leaders in the digital and online space, because I think it really brought the attention to what this space can do for programs and do for who's most important in higher education. That's our students. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah.
That's who's most important. And it provided the opportunities for such programs. So speaking of these particular programs, Masters of Accountancy and a Master of Science and Finance, why were these two programs on the radar for the School of Business here?
That's a good question. I think that these programs were on the radar primarily because they were not seeing the level of enrollment that they had been seeing for the Master of Business Administration, the MBA program at Howard University. So the thought was, how can we expand the reach of Howard University? And hence the launch of Master of Accountancy and Master of Science and Finance as online programs.
That's a perfect segue to do our tagline plug for the Office of Digital and Online Learning, which is advancing opportunities and expanding our reach. And it advances the opportunities not only for us as an institution, but for those prospective and current learners.
Yeah.
And it expands the reach again for the institution, but also for those learners. So you mentioned some key things. So the MBA program was having enrollment is offered online. However, the face-to-face programs for these programs were not having the enrollment.
Correct.
And they were traditional in person.
That's correct.
And I don't want to make a this or that, but I do want to point out that trends, data, et cetera, including what we're seeing empirically and firsthand, is that the fastest growing sector in higher education, which has been for more than a decade and was only exacerbated by the pandemic, is the digital and online learning space. Absolutely. And so now it brings us to 2021 when you're arriving, and you're charged with basically launching, developing these two new programs during a pandemic.
Right.
So you were able to develop those programs, correct?
Absolutely.
And they launched when?
They officially launched fall of 2022 as online programs. So I believe that they were initially launched in 2016 as traditional programs, and then were again reimagined in the online space.
Okay, so they were definitely mature programs.
Correct.
2016 to 2022, that's about, 6 years of offerings. And so in 2022, those were developed and both were launched that year.
That's correct, yes.
So these are both, how long does it take to complete these programs? What's kind of like the program structure?
Absolutely. So both programs are 30 credits or 3 credits per class. So a total of 10 classes, and they are intended as 1-year full-time programs. We do have students who decide to kind of spread that time out, so you're not necessarily locked into that 1-year time frame, but the idea is that students can get complete their program within as little as 1 year.
Wow, so this allows someone to come in and then within 1 calendar year to complete a complete master's in science and finance and a complete master's and or the master's of accountancy.
Accountancy, correct.
Correct me or provide me the context. The accountancy also does lead to or can lead to certification? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Master of Accountancy program specifically does have a CPA review course embedded into the curriculum.
That's awesome.
So the idea is that once students complete all of the coursework for the Master of Accountancy, they will actually be prepared to sit for the CPA exam.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that review course is inside of the program,
Yes,
whereas in many cases that's external or an addition, which also will come at an additional cost.
Correct.
So speaking of cost, we have to get the big question out of the way. Roundabout, what do the programs cost? And you don't have to give an exact number because I know that tuition is going to change over time.
Absolutely.
But just what's the roundabout cost for each degree? I don't know if they're the same cost or not.
Yeah, so they are actually the same cost. They're averaging right now around $45,000 for the entire program, which if you are in the DC metro area is actually very low in comparison to what some of the other neighboring institutions are charging for the programs. So we've got very competitive pricing for both the Master of Science in Finance and Master of Accountancy programs.
That's awesome. And so with that cost, I know there's many different roles that people can have in finance and different roles people can have as accountants as well. So what are some of the positions that people can land or have landed, and what's kind of like the salary expectation, or what does the master's do for the salary?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about the Master of Accountancy. I'll start there. The idea is that students, after they've completed the program, will come out, sit for the CPA exam, and become CPAs. I believe the starting rate for a CPA is in the 100s, 120s, and in comparison to maybe around 50 to 60,000 without those additional credentials.
And the CPA is the Certified Public Accountant?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Right.
Now, with the Master of Science in Finance, there are a lot of different directions that our students go. So some decide that they want to sit and become personal financial planners. In those instances, they might decide to pursue the CFP, or Certified Finance Planner. And that, again, is intended to kind of aid in the wealth management space. And I will say, so let me just kind of backtrack really quickly. One of the values of pursuing a Master of Accountancy and Master of Science in Finance, first and foremost, some information that people may not know is that we have about 3% of Black people in the United States make up professionals in the financial services industry. 1% are CPAs. So that's a very marginal number. And it is no surprise why Black people in general are have the highest poverty rate, because we're not educated to the same extent as others in the space. So that's what this value brings to, that's the value that a Master of Science in Finance and Master of Accountancy degree brings to our communities, is just a higher awareness of how finance works, how money works, And so with the Master of Science in Finance, as I mentioned, we prepare our students to become certified financial planners, CFPs, CFAs, for those who are looking to go into like corporate finance. And salary-wise, it ranges. I can tell you that I have a student who is being offered in the upwards of $500,000.
Okay, well, do I need to enroll in this program?
So there's a lot of money to be made in the financial services industry, and we want to be a part of that, and we want our students to be a part of that. So
absolutely. So you kind of gotten into one of my questions I was going to ask. So the significance of this being offered at Howard University and taught within a Howard University manner or the Howard University way is that it's specifically serving, not that it's exclusive to Black and brown students, but it is primarily serving Black and brown students who are disproportionately not involved or historically or traditionally underrepresented in this particular space.
Absolutely.
And what were those percentages again of the financial? Can you break that down just again for me? So
3% of Black people are in the financial services sector as professionals. 1% have earned their CPA. So that's such a small amount.
So out of the 100% of people involved in the finance sector, only 3% of them.
Correct.
Only 3% of them are Black.
That's correct. Yes.
And then only 1% of all CPAs are Black.
Correct.
So 99% of the CPAs are not Black.
Correct.
So Howard University is making a significant contribution by offering this education for Blacks because it's being there. Are there any culturally relevant or in the course design curriculum that's specific to Blacks and dealing with then touching the Black communities? Are there any aspects of that in the program?
So what I will say is that the content of the course, we have some very, very high achieving faculty within the Master of Science in Finance and Master of Accountancy programs, well decorated, and they're able to bring in their personal experiences or their professional experiences and connect those to how that impacts people that look like us. And so while I will say that the content is probably, I mean, we use textbooks just like any other institution, but the differentiator is that the people who are teaching the content are the people who are able to offer more relevant perspective as it relates to people who look like us.
Awesome. So the faculty are not also just academics, they are practitioners.
Some of them are, yes.
Current.
Correct.
Okay. Awesome. So what does the desired student profile look like for either program, whether it be the Master of Science in Finance or the Master of Accountancy?
So for the Master of Accountancy program, we do desire that students coming in do at least have a bachelor's in accounting. What we're learning, though, is that because there's such a high demand for individuals to go and earn their CPAs, we're offering a little more flexibility in terms of what the requirements are for that. So at this time, we are just really looking for students who have completed at least the first 2 accounting courses, so managerial and financial accounting. They've got to have some statistical coursework, statistics coursework, and economics coursework. So those are the bare minimum academic requirements that we are looking for in the candidate. We also are looking for someone who has an interest in wanting to become a CPA, because our program is designed for those who are interested in sitting for the CPA exam. For the Master of Science in Finance, so that demographic is a little more broad. So we've got students who are coming in who have already pursued an undergraduate degree in finance, but we also have students who pursued undergraduate studies in criminal justice or sociology or psychology. And so the Master of Science in Finance is a little more broad in terms of the students that we can allow in, because knowledge of finance it's ubiquitous in our society. At any point in our lives, we all utilize finance in some capacity. And so, again, there's just a lot more flexibility in terms of what type of student profile exists for the Master of Science in Finance.
Okay, so for the Master of Science in Finance, there's much more flexibility as to who can be enrolled.
Correct.
You could also do a career change, may have done
Yeah.
graduate work before, and then apply and enroll. So there's not really a prerequisite to enroll
Correct.
to the Master of Science and Finance.
Correct.
And then for the Master of Accountancy, basically about 2 courses and some stats background
Correct.
would give you. So you need some prereq knowledge, but not extensive.
That is absolutely correct.
Alrighty. Well, any last words of someone who's considering applying to the program? Anything you want to share about the experience, what students are saying about the program, or anything like that?
Yeah, so I can definitely say that the Master of Science and Finance and Master of Accountancy programs are rapidly growing. What started off with maybe 4 or 5 students in accounting has now doubled, and the same is the case for our Master of Science and Finance. I'll also add that the Master of Science and Finance, Howard University is at this time the only HBCU to offer a Master of Science and Finance.
Oh, wow.
So that is, we're very proud of that. I think that any student wanting to become part of the Master of Science and Finance or Master of Accountancy programs will find that the experience is very rewarding. Our students have a wide range of opportunities. We're actually going to the New York Stock Exchange.
Oh,
Some
wow.
of our students who are in the local area will get to go to the New York Stock Exchange in a
Awesome.
couple of weeks. Just came from a Bridging the Racial Wealth Gap event hosted by Northwestern Mutual in Milwaukee that we took some students to. So the level at which you want to engage in the program is totally up to you. We're here, and we're hoping that you think of Howard when you're looking for a Master of Accountancy or a Master of Finance.
And when can they enroll? Can they start fall, spring, summer?
Yes, so we have 2 admit cycles. We have
Okay.
summer and fall.
Okay, summer. Fall.
So right now we are, I think at the beginning of next month, we're going to start opening applications for students to apply for next academic year, beginning of summer. And so the deadline for the summer admit cycle is April 1st for submitting the application, and then the deadline for fall is June 1st.
All right, perfect. So the applications will open for anyone who might be viewing this in around November.
Yes.
For the following year, and the application deadlines are April for summer and June for fall.
Correct.
All righty. Well, with that, thank you so much again, Dr. Carson,
Yeah.
for taking time out of your schedule to come and share with the Office of Digital and Online Learning about your exciting programs.
Thank you for
And
having
thanks for all the great work that you are doing here at Howard University.
Absolutely. Thank you for your partnership.
Thank you. And thank you all for tuning into this conversation. And more information about how you can contact either Dr. Carson or the Office of Digital and Online Learning will be presented and provided for you at the conclusion of this conversation. Thank you all so much.